Hello everyone, my name is Bailee Dolan and today I'm going to be talking about Ronald Reagan, the 40th President of the United States. Reagan served as president from 1981 to 1989 during a time of major economic challenges and Cold War tensions. Throughout this presentation, I'll discuss his path to the White House, one successful and one unsuccessful domestic policy, and finally a foreign policy crisis and success that helped define his presidency. His path to the White House. Ronald Reagan was born in Illinois, but he built his political career in California, where he served as governor from 1967 until 1975. Before entering politics, Reagan was actually an actor in Hollywood and later served as president of the Screen Actors Guild. His experience in entertainment and public speaking earned him the nickname the Great Communicator, which became one of his greatest strengths as a politician. In the 1980 presidential election, Reagan ran against the incumbent president Jimmy Carter. The United States was dealing with high inflation, rising unemployment, an energy crisis, and concerns about American influence overseas. Reagan campaigned on reducing taxes, strengthening the economy, and rebuilding confidence in the country. Before winning the general election, Reagan had to compete in the Republican primaries. His strongest opponent was George H.W. Bush, who won several early contests. However, Reagan gained momentum as the primary season continued and secured enough delegates to become the Republican nominee. During the general election, Reagan won by a large margin, receiving 489 electoral votes compared to Carter's 49. He carried 44 states, including many important battleground states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Illinois, and Texas. Looking back, it's interesting to see that some states Reagan won easily, such as California and Illinois, now tend to vote differently in presidential elections. Domestic policy. One of Reagan's most well-known domestic policies was the Economic Recovery Tax Act of 1981. This legislation significantly reduced federal income tax rates with the goal of encouraging businesses to invest, create jobs, and stimulate economic growth. This approach became known as Reaganomics. This was one of Reagan's major campaign promises, and after taking office, he worked closely with Congress to make it a reality. He also spoke directly to the American people through televised addresses, explaining why he believed lower taxes would strengthen the economy. The bill received strong Republican support and also gained enough Democratic votes to pass. Many supporters believe these policies contributed to economic growth during the 1980s. However, others argue that the tax cuts combined with increased military spending led to much larger federal budget deficits and an increase in the national debt. One area where Reagan's administration faced criticism was balancing the federal budget. Although reducing government spending was one of his goals, spending on national defense increased significantly. As a result, the national debt grew considerably during his presidency, making this one of the more debated aspects of his domestic policy. During the 1982 and 1986 midterm elections, Republicans lost seats in Congress, which followed the common trend that the president's political party often loses seats during midterm elections. Even so, Reagan continued working with Congress to advance parts of his agenda. Foreign policy. One of the biggest foreign policy controversies during Reagan's presidency was the Iran-Contra affair. Members Members of his administration secretly sold weapons to Iran, even though there was an arms embargo in place. Some of the money from those sales was then used to support the Contra rebels in Nicaragua, despite congressional restrictions prohibiting that assistance. When this became public, Congress launched investigations into the administration's actions. Public approval of Reagan declined for a period of time, and many people questioned whether the executive branch had exceeded its authority. Reagan acknowledged that mistakes had been made within his administration, although investigations found that several of his advisors played significant roles in the operation. Despite this controversy, Reagan also achieved an important foreign policy success through his relationship with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. The two leaders worked together to improve communication between the United States and the Soviet Union during the final years of the Cold War. In 1987, they signed the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, also known as the INF Treaty. This agreement eliminated an entire class of nuclear missiles and represented one of the first major arms reduction treaties between the two countries. Many historians view this treaty as an important step towards easing Cold War tensions and improving international relations. In conclusion, Ronald Reagan's presidency had a significant impact on both domestic and foreign policy. His election reflected Americans' desire for economic change, and his administration introduced major tax reforms that continue to be debated today. Although his presidency included controversies such as the Iran-Contra affair, it also included major diplomatic achievements, including the INF Treaty and improved relations with the Soviet Union. Overall, Reagan remains one of the most influential and widely discussed presidents in American history because of the lasting effects his policies and leadership had on the United States. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.